Right. Morning, welcome everybody. Friday morning, we are talking about influencers, but not the kind you might think. So people who have influenced your life in one way or another, ordinary people who influenced your life in one way or another. So I'm going to go straight across to someone who's influenced mine, and that's you, Lee. So over to you. Of course, you're the boss. You must influence me.
Yes, and I'm a good influence, right? Thanks, Ivan. Yeah, you know, I've actually got my husband sitting here, and he doesn't know that I'm going to talk about him. So when I was thinking about there are many people who've kind of dropped little bits into my life at various points in time, and I've also had mentors and guides that I've gone to, and those people have also, you know, had influence on my life. But when I think, in the context of what Ed was talking about yesterday, of this, what about, or let's do this, or you know, let's go here, or experience this. It's definitely my husband, and I know that my life would be much duller, much more inward looking if I didn't have Christopher, who is just the epitome of a yes person. And so, you know, so one of the very first things, even before we were married, we decided we wanted to travel. Christopher had traveled a lot more with his family than I had. But we both had the travel bug. We had no money. But one of the advantages that we had is that in Christopher's work, every 5 years, this was based on the good old colonial British system of missionaries coming out from England, that every 5 years you would have 3 months furlough. And so that we didn't have any British heritage to go back to, but we still had the 3 months furlough. And so we saved like mad. And Christopher would say to me, do we really need this ice cream? Every 2 cents would go into the kitty, and we took ourselves off for 3 months backpacking through England and through the US. And that, you know, that was just an adventure of a lifetime. You know, we can still remember specific moments and experiences and people, and that's also when I learned the very, very important lesson that my husband must be fed at all times. So a hungry Christopher's not a happy one. And so it's that. And then we had another furlough a few years later, and I had this wild idea that we could do a house swap and a life swap, really, with another couple who needed to come and do some work in South Africa. So we swapped homes, cars, schools, and there was this another incredible venture where we actually lived in Nashville, Tennessee for 3 months. And it was, so it's these adventures, it's these things that were life-changing, that if Christopher hadn't jumped at it or suggested it or been a part of it, or, you know, said, let's do this, you know, it wouldn't have happened. And so my life is definitely richer and more wonderful as a result.
Great, thanks, Lee. Yeah, and we clearly can see that Christopher's sitting next to you, because Christopher, you know, she doesn't normally talk that nicely about, no, that's not true, not true. All right, good, so.
Don't tell him.
Don't tell him, yeah, the secrets that come out on Wisdom's chats you won't believe, so, yeah, good. All right, so let's get across to Ed next. Who's influenced you?
It's quite interesting, actually, that Lee should mention Christopher having to be fed all the time, a hungry Christopher's not a happy Christopher. I'm currently promoting 2 little books that I've written. One's a recipe book and one's a book of eclectic stories. And the recipe book is outselling the story book by 4 to 1. So we obviously feed our stomachs more than we feed our minds. Yeah, when I suggested this topic, I was kind of really interested in hearing what other people had to say. And then last night I thought, oh my God, I've got to say something. So I thought about it, and I'm going to talk about a couple who started my journey to conformity, and then a person who accelerated my journey out of conformity. And I mentioned, I think on the UK chat, that I used to be an ice cream seller, and that during the summer things were great, and during the winter they're a bit quiet, so I did other stuff. And the winter before I started the ice cream business, I worked for a builder as a labourer. And during the winter, it was blowing cold. And also carrying hodfuls of tiles up on roofs was not my thing. So at the end of the summer, after the ice cream sales, I was looking for something to do. And I was in the pub. And a guy said, he said, I'm looking for someone to help me renovate the basement in my house. I'm going to knock a couple of walls through and convert it into this big living area. I thought, well, I can do that. So I put myself forward to do this because I thought it'd be inside, be nice. Anyhow, the couple that owned the house were both accountants, and they were a bit thick, really. Anyhow, the following summer, there was this lovely girl that got a job with me as a summer job during her break from college. And I fell in love with her. But she was very traditional and her family were very traditional. So I kind of needed to impress her dad and all that sort of stuff. I thought, do you know what? I'll be an accountant. And it was that couple that influenced me down that route of being an accountant. And I became an accountant, and, I had a family. I had my idea of hell when I was young was to be married with an office job, 2 kids, a Volvo estate car and a couple of Labradors. Suddenly there I was, married, 2 kids, office job, Volvo estate, although I had Springer Spaniels, and I was as happy as I've ever been. But there was always the genie trying to get out of the bottle. Conformity didn't suit me very well. And I think my release was running. But even there, you're conforming, aren't you? You take the Comrades Marathon. It's got a start point, it's got a finish point, it's got a fixed route. You're conforming. And even in the desert races, say in the Sahara or in the Kalahari, you've got a start point, you've got a finish point, and you've got a route. Okay, it's not that necessarily well defined, but you've got to find your way between 2 fixed points. So you're still conforming. So I still felt frustrated, and that genie was still trying to get out of the bottle. That magic needed to be released. And then a friend of mine got in touch with me. I've mentioned this, so some of you will know this. She was originally from Romania, but she married an English guy, and therefore she became an English citizen. And she served in the English military. Anyhow, she got in touch with me and said, look, Edward, I'm thinking about organising a big race back in my home country of Romania. Will you come with me and help me organise the route and sort of check it out and something like that? I said, fine, yeah, I'll do that for you, Eva. She said, look, and we decided on what week I'd arrive in Romania, because she was already there. And she said, just get to Budapest airport and text me. Now, Budapest is in Hungary, it's not in Romania. So I kind of thought, well, that's a bit strange. But one thing I learned with Eva, even when she's being fed, she's really angry. So you just don't ask her questions. Eva will tell you what thinks you need to know, and that's it. So I thought, okay, I'll just arrive in Budapest. And we'd agreed a week, but not a day. So I just pitched up, I think, on a Wednesday. And I didn't need to buy a return ticket because she told me she got a car in Romania and she wanted to bring it back to the UK. So we were going to drive back. which is a hell of a trip. So I got to Budapest, and I text her, or SMS as you call it, and waited a couple of hours. She turned up. We spent a few days with her sister in Budapest. We went to the bars in Budapest. They're beautiful, these open air spa bars, fantastic. And then we went off to Romania in the Transylvanian Alps. We spent a load of time running together. We had no plans whatsoever. If we found some accommodation, we found some accommodation. If we didn't find some accommodation, we just had to rough it. And do you know what? It was the best time of my life. There are no maps of that area of Romania. Well, there are. The Russians have them, because in Ceausescu years, everything was controlled. No one had access to anything. So there were no maps, there were no routes, there were no paths, there were no plans, and that set me free. So Eva was a massive influence on my life. Unfortunately, the race never went ahead, and Eva's now lives in Hawaii she got divorced, then married an American serviceman, so she's now a US citizen. But yeah, so Eva set me free, and it set my mind free to say that I haven't got to follow a fixed path. And I think a lot of us, even though we think we're free thinkers, we follow fixed routes because they're laid down in our minds. And I still do it. You know, we still all have fixed ways of thinking because we're so used to it. But that just not having any plans, not having any, and it was really uncomfortable when I did that, because until that point, you know, I'd always booked my accommodation, I'd booked a flight, I'd booked a return flight. I knew what I was doing, I knew where I was going. Then it was just, wow, you are there. And spending 24 hours a day with Eva was a hell of a challenge. So that's me. And I've forgotten the names of the two accountants, but they were the ones that set me on the path to conforming, and it worked. It was what I needed to do. And then Eva set me on the, well, I'd already started on that route. Eva just gave me a big kick up the backside.
Yeah, she gave you an apple and unlocked Pandora's box. That's what Evas tend to do, something like that anyway. So yeah, get into trouble. Right, Tabisa, who's been an influence in your life?
Okay, my influences honestly have been from books, you know. So I think I'll talk about somebody who influenced me a lot, you know. Years back, I started, you know, I wanted a lot of money, you know, and I started trading, and I read all the books I could, and I actually invested money into my account, but it didn't go so well, you know. I ended up losing everything, and I just thought that maybe I knew my mistakes. I knew what my mistakes were, you know. So what I did was that I started another partnership, you know. So I gathered money from, you know, my friends and family, and I actually went again, you know. And of course, I lost again. I lost all the money, and it was terrible. Terrible because, you know, this time I did everything in terms of reading the books, and I did, you know, in terms of courses. I did everything that I could, you know. But you know, that whole Donald Trump getting elected for president thing really ruined everything for me, because in just a day, I don't know what just happened, you know, like the currency market just shut down and I lost everything, you know. So I just decided, let me just, you know, read something from someone who's successful in this field, you know. And that's when I came across, you know, Warren Buffett. And Warren Buffett is like, yo, the best, you know. So what I learned from Warren Buffett is that what I was doing, right, is that I was actually speculating, not investing. And he taught me that, you know, it's good to read books, and that you should invest when you buy a stock, rather, you know, you're buying a piece of a business. So when you buy a stock, think long term, you know. He taught me how to like delay gratification and to like regulate my emotions, you know. He taught me the importance of having an inner scorecard, you know, because you know we're in a world where people always try to influence us or try to get us to do, you know, things that are, I don't know, they try to control, you know, there are control systems everywhere. I mean, today I have on a mask because I was told that you should have a mask or else you are not going to get access to our infrastructure, you know, those things. And he taught me how to operate within your circle of competence, you know, so you should know what works for you, right? And improve that and make sure that everything is great in that field, operate within that field. And he taught me how to treat people well, you know, because people are a great resource, so to say, you know. People are what makes the world move around, you know. So he taught me that, and he taught me that you can never really get rich if you are normal, you know. So that has been my aim, you know. Don't be normal, because if you are normal, you are not going to be rich. So I learned that from Warren Buffett. And of course, he taught me that you should always be ambitious and aspire to make a lot of money and then just give it away. So I thought that was just like priceless, you know. And of course, I have to speak about Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs is like, yo, innovative, and I just like the man. Um, I like him because of the fact that, you know, he taught me how to say no, you know, because what no is that when you say no, you actually focusing, you know, everything falls behind and that's focused energy, you know. So he taught me how to always say no, you know, to things that are not enabling me to grow, you know. He taught me how to ambitious, of course, you know, and how to be creative and to get the best people on your side, you know, so that you can build something great. And he taught me how to think different. That was his comeback, you know, campaign when he came back and saved Apple, like the whole think different thing. And he had Bob Marley, and he had John Coltrane, and he had all these like, you know, inspiring creative people, you know. Like Steve Jobs was like, wow, he was like, you know, he was a visionary, you know, because he could actually get people to work together, you know, the best people. Of course, he was a bit narcissistic, but he always managed to get the best out of people, you know. So he taught me how it taught me excellence in a sense, you know, because you see with all these products, you know, with Apple, you know, it is wow, wow, you know, he taught me excellence, and he taught me to have that rebellious spirit, you know, like the topic we were talking about yesterday, to be wild, you know. He taught me that you should always aspire to build something great. And of course, he also founded, you know, my best company in the world, Pixar Animation Studios. And of course, I have to talk about another person who influenced me a lot, and that is Kanye West, because of course, he's also like a genius, and a musical genius rather, and is creative and is innovative as well. Um, I think that in an ideal world, I would be a mixture of Buffett, Jobs, and Kanye West, you know, because all these guys have this similar trait, you know. They have a lot of things in common, rather. They are not normal, for one, you know, and they do things differently, and they're just great and ambitious. I would say those are the guys that actually, you know, influenced me, and those are the guys that I love. So yeah, I think that's my contribution for today. Thank you, Ivan.
Great, thanks, Tabiso. Well, watch the space. I can see, I see a young man going far here. So go for it. Keep up keep up those learnings and start applying them, you're going to do well. So let's go across to another young man. So Trevor, over to you. Oh, sorry. Yeah, not young.
Yeah, no, I'm just jealous. Why could I have not been influenced by Thabiso when I was a youngster, for goodness sake? You know, I think of myself up until the age of 26 when I got married. Only from that date of myself getting married did things really change for me. But up until that time, I probably fitted under the definition of wild, uncontrollable, I will say easily influenced. Because if there was anything that we could do with the mates and going off and going out and not sleeping at night, I don't think I slept throughout the night for a good 8 years at least. While we were doing things at Varsity. I mean, if someone said, gee, the surf was great, she said, all right, let's get down there and let's shoot. And I also think I'm embarrassed to say that up to the age of 26, when I say I was easily influenced, it was in social things, but I was not influenced by anyone. And I have difficulty. So I'm embarrassed to say, I try to go back. Was it my old man? Was it my old lady? Was it the people that I actually met? I put up a picture yesterday, Thabiso, I don't know if you saw it, of my mate when we were paddling in the wild rivers. Did you see that picture? Because I think you were distracted. You didn't. Well, I've still got it up there. So I've got to show you. If I may, let's see if it does come up. Where's this thing? Share screen. Come on. Share screen. There you go. Share. Can you see that? Okay, it's come up. Right. So yesterday, Thabiso, I'll put this up especially for you, but then I saw that you must have been distracted and gone off somewhere. But this was in a wild, wild, raging river, the Umgani River on the Doozy. But why I'm bringing this up again, this guy here in the back, who has, he's got numbers of 40, 30, and 20. It's 40 mid-mile swims, close to 50, 30 doozies, 20 comrades, and then all, he must have 20 Ironman titles as well. He's the #1 Ironman in the country in perpetuity. I'm #2 in perpetuity in the country. But if you had to sit and talk to the number of people that this guy has influenced, it is absolutely incredible. The guys who flock to him, the people who's influenced, just absolutely amazing. And yet I'm saying I was never influenced by anyone. He became my master of ceremonies at our wedding, etc. We were all mates, but the thing that he wanted to do was to make certain that he got into the back of the canoe with myself, and that was not a really good influence on him, because I almost killed him a good number of times because of what we actually shot. So I'm trying to go back onto this, how Ed led off with who influenced you. And I didn't have it. I was a sort of nomad in the desert. I would be doing anything at any time. And as I was thinking about this while you guys were talking, I remember being in the surf, probably I might have been about 19, 20, 21, and thinking, man, this is great. I'm going to turn life upside down. I'm going to retire now for my first 30 years. And then I'll think about working later, because what's the point of waiting to actually retire? You may as well retire now when you're young, because when you get there and you're too old, you can't do the things you want to do. So I had that mindset, but then I happened to meet my wife and she changed the whole mindset, and I had to make some money, otherwise other guys would have stolen her. So I suppose there was an influence, but it was it was an indirect influence. I recognized that I was going to lose something if I didn't start doing something seriously in life. So I took life a little bit more seriously. And then I think about it, I wasn't influenced by anyone in books and all that sort of thing, all the way up until I got into my own businesses. And then I wanted to understand what the best of the best were doing. And that's when I got into books, and probably really hit the peak of being influenced by people in books, just like Thabiso, at around 30. That's when my book collection started to get quite big. And then was I influenced? Yes, I was influenced by the information that I was putting in and trying to live that information. So good stuff in, good stuff out, garbage in, garbage out. Ivan likes to talk about that in techie terms. And there's no doubt that that information has influenced where we are now, even our wisdom's teams and what we're all doing. But it was an indirect influence. I never really had a direct individual that I can point to that this individual influenced me. And in fact, when I think back to it, again, up to the age of 26, I almost always had to actually fight in competitive mode to actually get to achieve what I wanted to achieve in those younger days. I found myself having to fight to get into a rugby team, or fight to get into a polo team, or fight to win a championship, or fight to win these things. So it was always competitive, and so it was myself driving myself to actually get going. So what does that make me? 100% self-centered? Well, stuff it if I am. You know what? Others can take it or leave it. But I do still think if it wasn't for my wife, which then led to other responsibilities of kids and all of that, and we've been married just on 40 years, I probably would have been a nomad. I probably would have bumped what's that guy's name, Ed, running in the desert, but I would have been living in the desert somewhere as a nomad. I would have been traveling, wouldn't have had any cash around. I would have just been getting some Coca-Cola bottles and selling them for deposit, and buying some Polonian bread and hopping on to the next beach somewhere down there. In fact, that's what I was going to do just before I met my wife. I was almost ready to start touring every surf spot that I could get to. That was my vision of the future, but she put a stop to that. So I got as far as about Margate from Durban, I think, and then I came back. Anyway, so I don't know what you can make of that. Different strokes for different folks. Let me get rid of this.
Yeah, thanks, Trevor. Yeah, I must admit, I agree. I really struggled with this idea of who influenced me, because I've also read quite a lot, you know, and enjoy reading, you know, the kinds of books that Thabiso was referring to, and I take something out of all of them, I think. But if I can't really say that any one particular person has had a direct influence. I've also pretty much been we're talking about good influences, Trevor, good influences, yeah, not bad ones. Yeah, but it is interesting how, you know, the people you come across in your lives, they all have an influence one way or another. And you know, I think it's, you know, I've been a loner pretty much most of my life. And I say a loner, you know, yes, I'm married and I've got a family, and, you know, but both Ria and I are of a very similar mindset in terms of just enjoying being together by ourselves, if I can put it that way. So yeah, it is an interesting thing. You know, there are lots of people that probably have had an influence one way or another, but I can't put a name on someone who's had the biggest influence in my life. I don't think it's picking up bits and pieces. I was looking at you know, something that sparked my mind when somebody was talking, and You know, when I started doing some indoor rowing as a form of exercise, I came across this guy. Let me show you. And I won't say he's influenced me, but he certainly fascinated me. So the world's fittest 96-year-old, Charles Euster. If you ask Charles, at 96, retirement is a dirty word. A bodybuilder and a sprinter has set multiple world records in his age group in races ranging from 60 meters to 400 meters. Basically the fittest 96-year-old on the planet. And he only started running, I think, at, where did they say? I saw it, he only started running at 94 or something. He used to do a lot of indoor rowing. He's got a lot of world records. In indoor rowing, but you know, so I look at people like that, and you know, they fascinate me, and you know, I think he was a dentist, if I recall correctly. When he stopped doing dentistry, I think in his 70s, he was fairly unfit, and yeah, I agree, Joe. He's inspired me, and I think that's really the way I look at it. You know, I look at it from an inspirational point of view. So people who spark my interest. You know, I've spoken about Stephen Kotler and Jamie Wheel a number of times on this environment. You know, they really interest me and inspire me, and the stories they tell, I find inspiration as well. So, you know, I pick up bits and pieces from all over. I don't follow anyone specifically. I hate the news. I know Trevor loves the news. I never watch the news on the television of any form. I haven't bought a newspaper for 30 years. You know, I just don't find those things add any value to my life at all. So yeah, it's a difficult one to pick up on a name for me, and I don't think it has too much relevance. I think, you know, what Thabiso has done in terms of picking up a number of different influences early on, and picking up some great ideas is fantastic, and keep doing that. You know, I think that's the way to build some great insights and knowledge, and the key thing is to make sure you start applying some of those things. You know, just pick one or two ideas from each of them, and put them into practice, and things will start to happen. So, you know, I think one of the mistakes I made early on in my career is I read a lot of books, but I didn't do too much application out of what I read. I found it fascinating. I enjoyed it. You know, I've only later on learned that, you know, you need to start doing some application. You know, you can read and read, but you're not going to get anywhere unless you do something with it. So you can get bogged down in that research, and it becomes purely an interest rather than. I suppose it does add value, but it depends on what your ultimate goals are. So yeah, that's a complete ramble, meaningless. So I don't know where to go from here. But yeah, no, look, I think no. Just to wrap it up, there are two people. There are two people that have had an influence on my life. One is my grandfather, my paternal grandfather. I've spoken about him before. You know, he stayed very fit his entire life. I mean, he was still walking and riding his bicycle around London in his early 90s. He also kept mentally very fit. You know, he used to travel up to South Africa on a regular basis, and on his own, so also in his 90s. And I had some fascinating conversations with him, and he was mentally sharp and interested and engaged in life. So I think, yeah, you know, he was probably an inspiration. And then, you know, the other person was probably my daughter Gail. You know, yeah, she was amazing in terms of the things that she put her mind to, and she did, you know, despite her limitations and her challenges. Always had a smile, always was engaged in the moment, and I think that was, you know, that was something that was very, very powerful to learn from her. Time didn't really have a place in her life, I don't suppose. It was about now. What am I doing now? Who am I with now? And I think that's an amazing thing. So, yeah, Trevor, yeah.
So up until your last couple of comments on your grandfather and Gail, I was going to say, how can people listen to this meaningless blooming rambling that's coming from you? But the other thing that I just wanted to bring up with Tabusa as he was talking, a couple of things that went across my head as you were talking, Tabusa, and that was, man, have we been there, done that, got all the T-shirts? We got more T-shirts than you can ever imagine having cupboards for in terms of what we've done. But I'm sure it was someone in this forum actually brought up a formula for perhaps investing or speculating at the moment. Maybe it was something I was looking at on the news, but you can tell me. And it is not.
Don't believe anything you see in the news.
Not to give up on everything just because it didn't work once, twice, 3 or 4 times, and maybe to take a 70-20-10 approach, where 70% is the Warren Buffett direction, 20% is sort of just listening to a couple of advisors that are perhaps closer to you in local markets. And 10%, I think, is so important today. This blooming social media stuff and Doge coins and stuff that's coming up that people are throwing their money at and making 1,000% return. Maybe you've got to start thinking about playing around with speculations like that, because we don't understand what this technology is about and what this digital currency is about. I mean, so sometimes you've got to take a portion and be prepared to throw that at something, and it goes. If it gives me a return on some of that into the 20 and 70 amounts and split like that. So I don't know if anyone wants to comment on that at a later time. 70, 20, 10.
Investment advice. How amazing is that?
He's writing it down. Do not be influenced by people who are bad influences.
Evan, I do have a topic, unless somebody else has one. I'm offering a topic with the understanding that I'm actually not going to be here next week. So my apologies, or I'm not apologizing at all. I'm going to be on holiday. So Monday to Friday, I'm away. But I did think this word application, and I was thinking about because again, if I think about how my husband has influenced me, he is the prime example of somebody who reads and implements. He does not read. So I read because I love just the joy of reading. And then the book's gone and I'm on to the next one. Christopher, literally the book, he imbibes it. And then he sees how it needs to work in practice. And so he is the practitioner of note. And so I wonder whether we can't talk on Monday around application, is taking the ideas that we have and how do we actually apply them, which is Ivan's point as well. So yeah, application of ideas. Let's talk about that on Monday.
Great stuff. Thanks, Lee. Go and apply yourselves this weekend and come and tell us how you've done it on Monday morning. So we're looking forward to that one. It should be good. Otherwise, you can join us 20 minutes. We're on the chamber. Otherwise, we'll see you Monday morning. Have a great weekend. And Lee, have a great break. Put your feet up, rest, put your laptop and your cell phone away. Christopher, make sure she does that.
And
my family are the toughest on me. And
don't read newspapers. Have a holiday from the newspapers.
Yeah, switch the TV off, switch the newspapers off, don't switch Christopher off, but the rest you can switch off.
We'll have fun. Thank you.
Have a great one. Cheers.
Bye.